everyone. Happy Saturday. Welcome to High Strangeness. Hope you all are well. And so I am back. Was not here last weekend, but I am now here. I apologize for just disappearing and telling everybody last minute. I'm in a little bit of a different setup. We have a wedding going on in the family. So I have to hole up in a different area away from everybody, people staying with us. And last weekend was a bachelorette weekend, a tame one. So, but I am back. So our last show was the Bigfoot show with Hex Noob and Squatch Me Now, which was a lot of fun and like super informative. Because I kind of knew the basics on Bigfoot, but like I did not like completely grasp it. So that was very eye-opening in many ways. And Bigfoot definitely gives me some Skinwalker vibes. But yeah, I guess that's not here nor there. Got to ponder that some more. So yeah, thanks guys for being here tonight. So tonight I wanted to talk about the Area 51 caller. So Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell in 1997 had a frantic phone call come in on one of their lines. I don't know if this was like a direct line. It was some sort of special line for, I guess, certain information to come in. And this is where the call came through. And it's a very intriguing call for multiple reasons, especially now, what are we, like 25 years out from that? Once you kind of look back on it with the lens of everything we've been through and the current state of the world now, it becomes very interesting. So I thought it would be fun to explore that a bit and kind of talk about Coast to Coast AM history with phone callers and just a lot of weirdness that have come out of that. I'm sorry, I'm a little discombobulated, so forgive this interview. Introduction. Gosh, guys, it's one of those nights. I'm exhausted. But I guess that's the nature of these type of events. So, hey, Hex Mix and My Online Ghost and Mr. Okel. It's so nice seeing you all. And I am so curious about that name, Mr. Okel. Is that Illinois? Are you from Illinois? Can I ask that? Do you want to dox, is this fear of doxing yourself? I respect if you don't want to answer that, but I'm just curious. So a little Saturday night sci-fi headed our way. Yes. Except, the question is it fiction or is it truth? We don't know. Is Coast to Coast AM faking this stuff for attention? But did they really need the attention? Everybody knows Coast to Coast AM. So we're gonna take a look at that and see what is going on in the Coast to Coast world. Hey, Andrew Kennedy. So I'm excited to dive into that. But I just wanted to just say a few things about Area 51. So like Area 51 is interesting because for years, it's always been associated with UFOs and government secrets and aviation programs and whatever secrets are happening there. And it's been something portrayed even in like pop culture and Independence Day, for example. We know a chunk of that movie happens at Area 51. And I'm sure there's, X-Files. X-Files has Area 51 talk and episodes. I think Dreamland was like their most famous Area 51 episode. I believe that's a two-parter. So it's interesting because, it's been in pop culture for so long. So it's almost like Area 51 is supposed to be a secret, but it's a secret everybody knows about. So, it's if it really was a secret, would they be letting us talk about it in pop culture? Would it be a thing? Would we all know about it? Because we know that when they want to keep things from us, they can keep things from us. So to me, I always wonder, I'm like, okay, is something legit going on there? But would legit things be happening there if everybody knows that it happens there? You know what I mean? I almost wonder if it's an attempt at disinformation. So, saying is look at the birdie. So we're all looking at Area 51. Meanwhile, stuff is going on elsewhere. It's kind of the way I've looked at Area 51. Though I still think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that they have people that work there and like nobody knows what they're working on. And it's like, how can you work somewhere and not know what you're working on? Well, it's kind of like they assign different people different parts and like nobody knows what the other are doing. So they're all like little pieces to a big whole and nobody has any idea where they fit in. And the Janet Airlines, the fact that they have their own private airline to take people into and out of Area 51, I think is interesting. But what's most interesting is I believe the government never acknowledged its presence there until 2013, I believe is the year. Which again, to me, that seems like a big disinformation thing. It's like, oh, everybody knows it's there. And oh, okay, we're gonna pretend like they're coming clean and letting everybody know it does exist. Here we are. Look, 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 we're letting you guys all know. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's a distraction. They want us to look at Area 51. But regardless, there's a lot of interesting things to come out of it. Hey, Hexhodl. I don't know enough about that, so I haven't done anything with that. I just keep seeing it pop up on my timeline, Zen, but I am clueless. So, but thank you for asking. So yeah, so and also like we know about Bob Lazar too, who I believe was a physicist that worked at Area 51, and he has come out and told us like all these different Area 51 secrets. And again, I feel kind of suspicious. Like to me, he seems like a psyop. Because if somebody was going around spilling their secrets, wouldn't he either be arrested or wouldn't he be dead by now? So I don't completely trust the Bob Lazar stuff, but I don't know. We'll see. So let me hop into that call. So has anybody here heard of the Area 51 call or actually heard the Area 51 call? What's interesting is when I go into YouTube to search it, it doesn't come up. I have to go into DuckDuckGo, search it that way, and then find it that way, which I think is interesting. And not that I like DuckDuckGo because I know they're owned by Google, but it's odd that you can't find it directly through the YouTube search. Oh, interesting. So 50% of Ethereum gas traffic is from Zen claims. It's been clogging up Ethereum since its launch. Okay, that's interesting. Well, I guess I will have to look into it now. Okay. Sorry, you got me thinking now. Listen, I'm not somebody who's against. I mean, I am definitely a Richard Hart. I'm all in on his products, but like, I'm not against other products. I just don't know that much about it. But now you've intrigued me. I'm curious. So yeah, thank you for that heads up. So let me see. So it's free tokens from Jack Levin with over 300,000 Twitter subs. So it is free tokens. Has anybody looked into it to see whether, it's dangerous opening up your wallet to that? I'm going to assume no, because so many people have done it. But when people start looking into the contracts or whatever, has that, I'm sure it's happened in this many subs, but I'm curious. I'm curious what's happening with that. But I'm going to pop into the Area 51 caller. So again, you search it on YouTube, it does not come up that way. Okay, so safe to claim, but worthless tokens at the moment. Well, I guess if it's free and it's safe, there's nothing wrong with grabbing some worthless tokens. So I might just do that. Thank you for that heads up. Alrighty, so I'm just going to find that tab. And there we go. Okay. So this is the Area 51 caller. Let me remember how to share my screen. Sorry. I'm trying to remember how to do this. Oh, present. Okay. I think I got it now. Share screen. Okay. And it's going to let me choose a tab. Okay. There we go. So here is the Area 51 caller.
Fine, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Well, look, let's begin by finding out whether you're using this line properly or not.
Area 51.
Yeah, that's right. Were you an employee or are you now?
A former employee.
Former employee.
I was let go on a medical discharge about a week ago, and I've kind of been running across the country. Man, I don't know where to start. They're gonna they'll triangulate on this position really soon.
You can't spend a lot of time on the phone, so give us something quick.
Okay. Okay. What we're thinking of as aliens are they're extra dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the military, I'm sorry, the government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving the population to now, Art.
But they're not doing anything.
They are not. They want the major population centers wiped out so that the few that are left will be more easily controllable.
Discharge.
I started getting...
In some way, something knocked us off the air, and we're on a backup system now.
Is it government or?
I don't know.
It has to be something, though.
Well, did you hear? Now, you tell me because you were listening.
That was awful strange.
There was a really weird guy on the air when it went off?
Yeah. Real weird out.
Like, going sort of sounding paranoid,
Yeah.
schizophrenic?
Like crying and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how far into the conversation was it when it went off?
Just a couple, about 15, 20 seconds, I'd say.
Oh, you guys missed. You really missed a call then, and I've got a feeling somebody didn't want you to hear it.
Yeah. Because it was really strange. All of a sudden, I'm hearing Mark Furman when I
That's right. Well, the
listening.
network, of course, went immediately to a backup tape while we tried to figure out what blew up here. So that's what you heard happen. And then we're now on a backup link system to be on the air at all right now. So, well, I'm telling you.
Am I
Now
on
I
the
gotta
air right
figure
now?
out
You're
what
on the
this
air
went.
right now. Well, you better be, yes.
I just lost
And
Where are you,
the
by the way?
source of
I'm
the
in
call.
Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah,
Okay.
I called the other
No,
night.
that's not it.
And I wanted to ask two things.
Oh, you have a
Real
tab
quick, I
going and
wanted
you
to say
can't
one
find it?
thing, and I
No,
wanted
you
to
can't
ask
find it.
another.
Okay.
Real quick.
There, I found it. Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So, hey, Torin. So, as we just heard, okay, caller calls into Coast to Coast AM, apparently on some sort of special line. Guy says he works for Area 51. He was let off in a medical discharge, and they're coming after him, and that the aliens, what we know of as aliens, aren't actually aliens. They're interdimensional beings, apparently really dangerous, and for whatever reason, government is chasing after him. So he's frantic and he's trying to let the world know. And he's saying something's going to happen in the population centers. And in these population centers, they want to wipe out large amounts of population. So the government knows, and they have the ability to move people to safer areas, but they are not. They're leaving people in these population centers so that major amounts of people get wiped out. And whatever, few stragglers are left are easier to control. Then the call cuts out. It's like he loses some sort of satellite transmission, and the radio station gets knocked out, and they ended up on some sort of like backup generators. Really weird, right? And what's also weird about this is that this call happened on September 11th, 1997. Weird. And then 4 years later, something happened in a major population center. So really odd. And it was interesting because I think a couple days later, this guy ends up appearing, supposedly this guy. He either calls into Coast to Coast or he calls into another radio show. I think it was another radio show. And he says that oh, it was actually a hoax. I was playing a prank and haha, it went over well. So and you look at that, and I think people had said, I haven't heard that call, but people had, and I was having trouble finding it, but that it sounded like two different people, that second caller. So somebody was trying to discredit it, or somebody was, trying to take claim and, I don't know, get themselves famous. No idea. Other thing that's strange about that is that guy legit sounds frantic. When people are faking something, you can kind of tell. So that man was either an actor and he knows how to bring up that emotion, or he legit was frantic. And if he legit was frantic, you're like, okay, well, is it because it's true and he really is in that situation? Or is it because maybe he's schizophrenic or something and believes whatever he's told himself? So very strange situation to look at. And what's also odd is whether or not he was a hoax, the whole radio station went offline, especially in 97. I don't think, if you want to say now people are somehow hacked into something at the radio station, now they would be capable. But in 97, that wasn't, people really didn't have those capabilities back then. So it was weird. The whole radio station went offline and people were like, well, that's because Coast to Coast AM was in on it and they were playing along and they pretended like their radio station got knocked off the air. But in the 90s, Coast to Coast was already established. Everybody knows Art Bell. So why would they need to stage something viral like that? And especially without the internet being a way to get things viral, would it really have been something to make the news? So to me, that seems far-fetched. And then just, even if it was a hoax, somebody had brought this possibility up. They're like, well, it is Coast to Coast AM. So if somebody was going to share something with the world like this would probably be a good place to call, regardless of whether it's a hoax or not. So maybe the FBI happened to be listening in case somebody calls in with something interesting. And maybe this guy sounded so legit and was on target, even if he was hoaxing, that the FBI went, let's pull the plug on this. Which is interesting. So that was another angle that intrigued me. But something, just when you listen to it, something, the way it just like kind of sits in you, I'm like, it seems a little too real, to be comfortable, too close to comfort. You know what I mean? Oh, thank you, Crypto Jack. Yes, smash that like and subscribe if you can. So really odd thing happening here. What's also interesting is there's a lot of talk about these beings, aliens, being extra dimensional. And as time goes on, we seem to be talking more about the dimensions. And they're saying that an organization before NASA made contact with these beings that they call aliens, these interdimensional beings. And which is wild, because if you look at Stranger Things, that's like the plot of Stranger Things. And a lot of people believe that Stranger Things is not so much predictive programming, but it's hinting to us what is actually going on. Because it's like so many things of what they show in Stranger Things happens to coincide with real life, happens to coincide with different programs the government has tried once upon a time. So we know the government's done like Monarch, Project Monarch. I forget these. They've done all these type of experiments with psychedelics and ESP and all these different things. They have experimented with that for decades and they've admitted to it. And so Stranger Things happens to follow along with a lot of those things. And Stranger Things talks about different dimensions and creatures in other dimensions and opening up portals, which is wild because nowadays that's a big concern with CERN. And so this was 25 years ago though. And they're talking about interdimensional entities. And now there's talk about CERN besides opening up a portal, that they are actually in communication with interdimensional entities, and that they're using quantum computing to send signals to these other dimensions that they're trying to explore. And from what I've heard is there's, and from what I've heard, is there ever solid evidence? No, we're never going to get solid evidence, but there's talk that these signals somehow have been intercepted, that we've sent on our quantum computers to these other dimensions, and they've come back to us too. So people are like, well, what is listening on the other side to those messages? What is receiving? Who is intercepting these messages on the other side? So when you hear this, knowing that, it's interesting, because maybe, let's say, back in the early aughts, 08, 09, before I kind of knew about all that interdimensional type thing, I would have taken interdimensional to mean like, just straight up demonic. But now that I understand a little bit more about the spirit realm and the demonic, and how there are other dimensions that they live in and move in and out of through portals, and that these things are all real, and then knowing about CERN, I'm like, wow, just this seems real to me. This call, I think it's real. Oh my gosh, yeah, Art Bell, rest in peace. But he brought a lot of wild stuff to us, and especially in the Area 51 thing, he really did do a wonderful job at exploring it. I mean, whether or not Area 51 is a psyop or a distraction or not, I appreciate that he made the effort of exploring it. So, like, what do you guys think? Do you think that the Area 51 caller was legit? Do you think it was a hoax? Do you think it was something else? But you understand what I mean? That, like, now as time goes on, this stuff is making more sense. Interdimensional entities that they're communicating with, especially now with CERN and whatever portals might be happening there. So it's scary. And the whole population centers thing. Now there's all the talk about nuclear war and what's going on with Russia and stuff. And, population centers being a target, and then if population centers were a target, yeah, you would wipe out a massive amount of population, and you would have a small amount left over. People would still survive, and then you could control that. Whether or not you believe nuclear weapons are a psyop, just, the concept. Because even if they are a psyop, like some people believe, they still use fire bombs to kind of fake that. So people do die, and there are mass casualties in these type of things. And even if, there's something else here I want to say, but I'm like, am I going to get knocked off of YouTube for this? Am I going to get myself in a lot of trouble? But there's maybe I could say this in the most veiled way possible, but there is a belief that, so when we hear that, we think like some sort of strike against us, whether it be war or disaster or terrorism, whatever. Well, what if you chose to look at that population centers thing in a different way? There's a belief that medical issues are targeting people in certain population centers. You know what I mean? Like certain, batches of different things with serial numbers can be designed to hit certain groups of people in certain areas. Like, notice certain cities have people that get sicker than others lately in the past 2 years. And, people wonder if it is targeted. So I'm like, what if that is what he's describing and it's happening now? Lowering the populations in the big population centers. So I don't know, but I am intrigued about this. And it's not the first time he's had an Area 51 caller. Have you guys ever heard the caller who was a pilot who was flying into Area 51, and he's like, I'm going to do it. And he's on the phone with Art Bell as he's doing it, and eventually they lose contact. I mean, that was another cool one, but I went to go find it and it was pulled off YouTube. So I don't know if that's because Close to Close is claiming the rights, or whether it's just not a convenient piece of information to happen or to have out there. But the story is, for anybody who doesn't know, is like the pilot gets on the phone and is like, I don't care, I'm going into the restricted airspace, I'm going to fly into Area 51, I'm going to see what's going on. And then as he's calling, he's like, oh my gosh, there's jets scrambling around me and this and that. And I don't know if they were going on the radio to call him, and he shut it off, and he just kept going. And then eventually they lose the signal. And people believe that was a hoax, but then there was a downed aircraft found in that desert. I guess a downed private aircraft. So people are like, it might have been real. And then as I was researching those things, there was another one that popped up that kind of blew my mind. I just read the description. I haven't even listened to it, but let me see what the description was. Somebody, I guess, who called themselves the Antichrist, called the Art Bell Show, so-called Coast to Coast, predicting economics collapse starting in 2006. Interesting, right? Because we know what happened around that time. That's when everything started collapsing. The big banking industry started collapsing. So that was pretty interesting. But I don't know. I don't know where to go with this. So it's not super. I don't have anything. I'm sorry. You have to see my lipstick on this straw. So I don't have anything like really super prepared today. It was more like what I've been thinking about the past 2 days. So because we got caught up with all this wedding stuff. Not my wedding, relative's wedding. But I wanted to have the chance to chat with you guys. I didn't want to miss out. So I wanted to come in regardless and just kind of share that video and these thoughts with you guys. So, okay, Torrin, so you have not heard that one. I have to track it down and find it. Wait, you haven't heard the Antichrist one talking about the financial collapse, or you haven't heard about the pilot one? Because I have to find it because I did hear it somewhere. Maybe I found it on their website, but I can't find it on the YouTube as is. So, yeah. Anything else kind of catch your guys' eye lately? Anything weird happening that, besides all this nuclear Armageddon talk? Oh, so there's one with a time traveler that you really want to find again. Okay, so Torrin, you had not heard of the pilot one before. So yeah, like I said, when I looked it up, the link is now gone and doesn't work anymore. But I'm pretty sure I listened to it through the Coast to Coast website. So unless they're keeping exclusive archives there that they don't want it elsewhere. So maybe if you went and searched through their website, because that's where I'm going to have to search for the pilot one. Yeah, everything is weird on that show. And here's the thing. I am sure there are a lot of hoaxes happening, a lot of fake stuff happening. But I feel like in the midst of it, there's got to be gold. There's got to be a few real things. There's too much strangeness for, like, you know what they say, the truth is stranger than fiction. So there's too much strangeness in there for something not to be real. But we're just living in strange times, and as time goes on and I'm learning more, I'm like, everything's theater, everything's fake. And we're just constantly deceived at every turn. And I've, growing up in my faith, growing up in the Christian faith, I always knew that, there was a spirit realm and that there's basically a battle between good and evil. And I knew it was kind of everywhere and that there was darkness in the world, but I don't think I ever realized what extent these things are happening, to what extent these things are happening, because only relatively recently have I realized that this stuff is bigger than we imagine. There's more to it than we imagine. And that there's just like, we're constantly in a battle. We're constantly being attacked by this darkness, but it's so disguised as just like normal, whatever, harmless stuff around us. And then you start to, it's like once your eyes are open, you can never see things the same again. And I'm not trying to be vague. I just don't know what way to describe it. And I think something that's really opened my eyes is there are three different podcasts I've been listening to, and one of them blew my mind so much that I kind of freaked me out. It was like it stuck with me all night. Like I was so disturbed. It was just like one of these things where I'm like, nothing is safe, everything is dark, and we're just in the midst of it. We're in the midst of this spiritual war, and it really scared me. But then I'm okay. I recovered now. But it was a podcast called Blurry Creatures. So Blurry Creatures kind of really explores everything from cryptids to to like interdimensional type things, to the Nephilim, giants, fallen angels. So Blurry Creatures has been a great podcast that's really opened my eyes. Another one is Let's Be Friends podcast by Kara Mosier. And she also has another podcast called the Not So Secret Societies podcast. And here's the thing, like, I don't agree with everything that's said. But there's there's a lot of ways my eyes are open, and there's a lot of common ground that I do find in these podcasts. So that is what I've been listening to. Those are the things that have been blowing my mind lately. I just picked up a book, one of Zachariah Sitchin's books about the Giants. So interested in exploring it. Hi Ada, nice to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. And Tin Top too. So I miss all you guys. So yeah. So like I said, I don't have anything really prepped besides just wanting to share that with you guys. But yeah. So I'm just like just lately, like I said, it's just having my mind open to these stuff, and then once your eyes are open, once your mind is open, and that almost becomes the lens you view everything through, and then all of a sudden everything makes sense, especially when you view everything through that fallen angel Nephilim lens. Then it's like, oh, the world then starts to completely make sense in all different ways, pre-flood, pre-deluge, and after flood, today, everything, you name it. So hey Rothko, have I seen Come True Dream Demons? No, but that sounds interesting. Dream Demons, kind of like Freddy Krueger, right? Coming through in the dreams. Now I'm curious. Cool. Okay, now I'm going to look it up. Hold on. So bear with me. I want to see what Dream Demons is. Malevolent demonic entities. Oh, okay. So it's a movie. It's not a documentary. Okay. So oh no, Come True. Okay, sorry, I looked up the wrong thing. So Come True. Dream Team. Okay. Having trouble finding it, but I'm going to look for that. So at least it's in my search bar. Thank you for that suggestion. John Davis says the evil of the spiritual real, I think you mean right realm, is that a typo, is a daily and ancient reality. Yet even more reality is the absolute sovereignty of God and the crown rights of King Jesus in every area of life and thought. Amen to that. And when I said that, it was kind of like, it really freaked me out that night. I felt uncomfortable. I felt unsafe, like when you really open your eyes to everything around you. And I had an awareness, but it was like something like really clicked. I heard somebody on a podcast that like, oh shoot. And it was like in addition to something my friend had already sent me. So it was just like this big kaboom, big brain explosion. But the comfort to me was that exactly what you said. I'm like, God is on the throne. He's sovereign and he wins in the end. I'm like, because that is the only comfort in once you wake up to all of this, I feel like. Okay, so the movie's not real. Gotcha. Okay. Speaking of, this was Dream Demons that we were talking about. Oh, one of your newly created wilds for Zen has 666 in it. Yes, so if we are talking about the end times, that is quite a number. You want to buy an extra one? But I don't believe it's like an unlucky number that if that happens to be in your wallet, then you're like in trouble. No. Oh, there's an XXX version. Thank you for the heads up. I'll be aware and I'll be careful when I go looking for that. So simulacron, like blockchain, can roll us back whenever they want. New crazy theory. Oh no, I haven't heard that theory. Interesting. But cron, like Chronos, like the clock. Interesting. Kind of like Saturn. And doesn't Saturn represent Satan? Sorry, I'm going into a rabbit hole. Or a duck hole, as we like to call them here. Sorry, finishing up the list of my quadruple espresso. And watch, and I will still go to sleep right after this with that in my system. Oh, Hex Hoddle been hexed? Hee hee. What happened? Did he get rug pulled because he's talking about Sin? I don't know. Did he disappear? Oh no, there he is. Okay, good. I was worried. He disappeared. You want to see a good but new horror movie, but like nothing is out lately. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, I keep seeing releases of new horror movies, but like nothing. I mean, so I think there have been a few released. I mean, nothing's really caught my attention because honestly, I think I don't pay much attention to horror movie genre unless a new Conjuring was released. Those I do like, and those scare me. There we go, down the duck hole. Forget the rabbit hole, down the duck hole. Yeah. So the movie's real, just not a documentary, based on different spirit demon concepts that relate to dreams. Came out in 2020. Well, the interesting thing about that concept of demons and dreams and things is they say that we're most vulnerable when we sleep. That's why people have sleep paralysis. That's why when abductions, people report abductions, it happens at night during sleep. There's something very vulnerable about that state. So I mean, it sounds entirely plausible, which I guess makes Nightmare on Elm Street that much more scary. I do like the Nightmare on Elm Streets. So when you Google or DuckDuckGo hex definition, it's an evil spell, a curse. Hex definition. Yeah, well, hex itself, yeah, hex is another name for a spell or curse. But the interesting thing about the hex that we're into is the logo is a hexagon. So I'm like, okay, cool, mathematical. Because otherwise, I would have ran the other direction. I'm like, I don't want anything named after a spell or curse. But yeah, thankfully, the hexagon logo, I'm like, all right, mathematical, geometrical, we're good. Yeah, where is Bit Finesse? Well, I mean, I'm sure the fact that in the past month I've missed a couple of high strangenesses kind of makes may disappear off people's radar. People forget about me, but thank you guys for remembering and for being here. As disorganized as today's show is, hex one that brings us bad luck. Well, again, let's look at it in the positive way. It's geometrical. It's a hexagon, right? Well, we're gonna make it that's how we're gonna view the name hex. Yeah. They should call it something else. I know, because okay, when I talk about hex, I'm like, I hope people do not think I'm talking anything spell like or anything curse like, people gonna think I got into the occult. Oh, speaking of the occult, but before we talk about that, I just noticed two other things here in the chat I didn't see before. So precisely what it's about, having sleep paralysis myself, it's freaky AF. People do believe that sleep paralysis is something demonic. It's because they see things in the corner of their room. They see things in whatever their dream, and that it is a demon preying on somebody. Because a lot of people notice that when they start praying, that it releases and it goes away. Demons play on your memories of horror movies. It's never a good idea to watch them, especially just before going to bed. Succubus and incubus. You know what? I've been thinking about that lately. I've been wondering. I'm like, does horror open doors to things? And my mom has referenced that happening, or that it's a possibility and that you have to be careful. And for the most part, I don't see a lot of horror. I'm just not into it. I don't find it that scary, the horror that I do watch. But I just prefer sci-fi. Sci-fi is my genre. But some horror is really dark and twisted. I one time read a description for a horror movie, and people were like, oh, that movie's it's funny, it's silly, it's not actually horror. Hellraiser. But I'm like, when you read the plot of it, it's twisted and it's scary, and it horrified me just by reading the plot. And I'm not somebody who gets afraid of horror. So so horror is not my thing, but I do gravitate toward the Conjurings, and there's just something about it, because to me the Conjurings are like they feel like more like a warning. Like this is what happens if you mess with these things, and this is why you shouldn't, and and these are the spiritual ramifications, and this is how it connects to the spiritual world. I've always felt that way about The Conjuring, and it's one of the few movies that like make me really tense and uncomfortable because it's true to life. And I recently found out that The Conjuring is written by Christians. I'm like, that's why I connect with it. It's a warning story, basically. So Hex is a curse of the banker, so that's funny. Eyelashes, but yeah, I'm like, I don't want my people to think that that's what I'm into. So I'm always like, yeah, hex like a hexagon is what I say. So yeah, bankers, exactly, would not be in tax. I mean, honestly, for the most part, most cryptos, unless it's like one of those WEF ones, that's why they're seeking, the government's seeking to regulate it, because obviously, they get money from the big banks, and the big banks don't like it. And then Hex, especially Hex, like we said, being a money printer, no wonder we get so much hate on it, and people are always trying to call it out as a Ponzi and a scam, because people don't get it, but people don't want it to be real, because it's a way to make money. It's a way to break out of their system, their financial matrix. Yeah, long live Hexico. So you got some hacks on Ethereum F. Is that mean fork? I forget like what the the letters mean. It's been moving like crazy daily. Low liquidity, high volatility. I had tried one of the new forks getting into it, but I was just had a lot of issues. I think part of it is being in New York State and accessing some of these things. But I know I was told to use a VPN, but it just gets, I don't know. I had problems with it, but I'm good. Not like I got dry powder now. A few weeks ago, I had a little bit. Army of Darkness is a good old one. I have not seen that one, but I think I have it. I'm not sure. No, I don't. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm thinking of the TV show. So yeah, so speaking of the occult, I live not far from Sleepy Hollow. And the wild thing about Sleepy Hollow is, to us it's just a local thing. Like, I feel like it's just a thing that we know about, that the world wouldn't know about, that the country, other people in the country wouldn't know about. But apparently it's like a big tourist thing, and people come from all over to visit around Halloween, and that people know the story of Sleepy Hollow and the Headless Horseman. Again, because we're from here, it's mind-blowing that people outside of the area know Sleepy Hollow. But I went on a cemetery tour, and yeah, there were people who were like from out of state, and people with accents and stuff just staying local and like doing all the Sleepy Hollow stuff. So we went on a lantern tour through Sleepy Hollow Cemetery at like 10 at night, 10 to midnight. It was really cool. And it was interesting going through that cemetery, because I did not realize that Sleepy Hollow Cemetery was full of like so many of like these elitist families, like the families that kind of rule the world. And I know, like, there's like 12 of the big name families, but I'm like, some of these other people are big names and have like a lot of influence. So it was very strange to walk through that cemetery, because you're like, okay, well, this guy created this, and they created this, and these people were responsible for the financial systems that are currently enslaving us. And the Rockefellers have this massive burial vault there, and you see the Astors, you see the graves of Fargo, who did Wells Fargo, and all these big newspaper people, and it was very strange to walk through here. She's like, oh my gosh, these are these ruling families of the world. Yes, part of the 12 families, but also these other minor families that, like I said, I feel like these are people that are buried in the cemetery that are responsible for like the enslavement of humanity through like our current financial systems, our educational systems, our debt systems, everything. So it was really spooky to walk through, but also like knowing these people are cultists, or a lot of them were occultists. I'm like, Shoot, this is creepy. It makes you wonder what might happen in that cemetery after hours, when it's supposedly locked up and closed. So yeah, just a lot of thoughts like that happening. Oh, and the Carnegies are buried there. Now, I was like, oh, I don't know. Are they one of those creepy families? My sister's saying that they aren't, but I'm not sure. I'm not entirely convinced. So, oh, okay. Thank you so much for this info. So I'm going to have to look into that. So ETH Fair. Gosh, how many forks are happening lately? Okay. So I'm going to check that out. You use MaxCCX with the email to get, okay. That's good to know. Thank you so much. And so I'm going to come back to the live chat later. So I have all that info. I appreciate that. So Torin, you had a really good friend from Sleepy Hollow area when you were in the Coast Guard. He took you there a few times and you remember thinking everyone from there was highly strange. I don't know many people from Sleepy Hollow, but I have to say in my county, there are a bunch of river towns, and the river towns all feel strange, and they all had a very strange vibe to them. And they don't feel like the rest of the county. They feel eerie and creepy. And not just because of the legend of Sleepy Hollow. Like, even if you're not thinking about that any time of year, it just, something feels very off. So you wonder what's going on in that area spiritually. Oh, sorry, did I click this again? Okay. No, it just popped up twice. Yeah, so it's it just kind of like hammered home just how, you know, the fact that these people likely were occultists, and then you see like occultic symbolism and imagery happening, especially with the obelisk, because if you're familiar with obelisk and what they represent, you know, they represent the phallus and they're tied into sex magic, and then you see them in these cemeteries, and you're like, really is just a reminder of the fact that everything is not as they seem, that these people, these ultra wealthy, the elites, they don't just happen to come into that. Like, they are typically involved with really dark stuff. So I'm like, it just hammered all that stuff home. And the fact that, like, why are they all in this area? What is New York? Why is New York like the center of all this weirdness? I know some of you might want to say, because New York is weird. No, don't insult my state. The rest of the state is lovely. The city can be a little weird, but no, thanks for coming, Brian. We were just talking about Sleepy Hollow and all the creepy occultist and ruling families that are buried there in that Sleepy Hollow cemetery. So you have never been to New York? I don't know. I'm biased when it comes to New York. As Brian knows that I love living here. But I mean, there's a lot to see. I just like can't picture visiting here. I don't know. Like, my brain can't wrap around the fact that like people come here, people visit, people see these things that are here, like that people like visit besides just like visiting your friends who live here. So I can't like wrap my head around it. But I'm sure if you did come to New York, there's a ton of fun stuff to see and do. Like I said, I'm just always puzzled when I see tourists in New York. I'm like, why are you here? If you're not visiting somebody, what is it? What brings you here? Yeah, North Tarrytown. When did they change that? Was that the 90s when they changed North Tarrytown to Sleepy Hollow? By the way, for anyone who's not aware, Tarrytown is the hometown of Bruce / Caitlyn Jenner. So, little tidbit. So only Florida on the East Coast you've been to. Okay. Florida's interesting too. Okay, so they changed the name back sometime in the 90s. Yeah, I think it became Sleepy Hollow in the 90s, and it has stayed that way since. Like, they've really embraced their whole like tourism thing. Like, I actually have some pamphlets on my bed to see what's going on here. Because, you know, it's like one of those things that when you're local, sometimes you miss out on all these things that happen, and all the cool stuff and all the tours and the events and stuff. But I don't know. Yeah, Headless Tourist. Let me tell you though, they have put on some really nice productions. Like, if you've ever been to a Brian Cloudis like theatrical production, he does like immersive theater, and he did really great one for The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and they do some cool stuff with people dressed up on horses there carrying a pumpkin with the headless horseman. So I have to say they do up some really nice events. And I'm sorry, my chair is still squeaking. Have I been over to Niagara Falls in a barrel yet? No, that's next year. That's I've actually never been to Niagara Falls because it's like 7 or 8 hours from here. Like New York is that giant. But I'll have to put the barrel on my list. Macabre tourist or a different breed. I hope this doesn't insult anybody, but just people who are into macabre are a different breed of people. They're nice, but just like I can't. I'm like, oh, can't wrap my head around this stuff. Speaking of macabre, though, met a really nice macabre person. I ran into Ask a Mortician last week. That is a really fascinating channel if you're into the macabre, if you're into like the history of death and all these different things and like that. We were in Rhinebeck for bachelorette weekend, and I'm walking and I'm looking at this lady, and I'm like, she looks so familiar, and I just keep looking at her as I'm walking by, and then she's looking at me, but I'm like, whatever. Sometimes you make eye contact, people on the sidewalk, and then somebody I was with goes, oh my gosh, Ask a Mortician. And I was like, yes, that's who it is. Then we ran over and took a picture with her. She's very nice. So 1996. Oh, okay. You're talking about that movie up there. Oh, no. Sorry. 1996 is Sleepy Hollow. So North Tarrytown got renamed to Sleepy Hollow. So, and they embraced their whole Washington Irving thing. So I mean, yeah, if you're ever in New York, I think it's worth a see. Anybody who's in the area. Like I said, it was weird. It was odd to be in this cemetery tour group and there be people who were like visiting from out of state. I'm like, why are you here? I thought this is a local thing. So it was interesting. I guess, I don't know. They annoyed my sister, but I didn't even notice that they were like freaking out, taking lots of pictures and being touristy. I'm like, yeah, why not? You paid to be here. Have fun. Yeah, I've never been to Niagara. And I really want to go see Jamestown, birthplace of Lucille Ball. They have a lot of cool Lucille Ball stuff there. And like Lucille Ball wanted to make her birthplace, Jamestown, she wanted to make it like a comedy center. And so, which seems odd because it's kind of like random place. It's not near any major cities, but there's some sort of museum of comedy there. And I think some of Betty White's stuff was just donated there. And I think it has like costumes from Ghostbusters and everything. So it's actually becoming a hotspot, Jamestown. And I have to say, gorgeous, inexpensive, beautiful old houses with character. But I hear their taxes are really high. And I don't know what economy is there. Okay, good. So I'm glad to know I'm not the only New Yorker who has not been to Niagara Falls. And I think Canada had been weird too about people they were letting in and out. So I'm like, I don't want to go anywhere near Canada. Canada is creepy at the moment. I love you Canadians. I'm not saying anything mean. I just think your prime minister is a little over the top. Yeah. Oh, yes. I love Lucy too. Sorry, I'm clicking too much stuff. You got to get me a new chair. You were looking for that squeak in your office again. Haven't heard in a few weeks. Then you remembered your chair. I like this chair. I don't want to change it. I like my director's chair, though sometimes my legs feel really weird when I stand up. Cuts off my circulation. You flew through the Grand Canyon and at Niagara Falls in the flight simulator. Oh, I'm glad you had a nice virtual tour of the United States. I think I've flown near the Grand Canyon in a flight simulator once. Hey, Axender. Popping in midstream, we talk an alien ghost combo. So I kind of had like a kind of an abbreviated session live stream today because got a lot going on with the wedding coming up, not my own. But I still wanted to talk about this wild. So for anybody who's just popping in now, this wild phone call that came into Coast to Coast AM. It was the Area 51 caller. And yeah, so for anyone who wants to catch it in the replay, guy who worked in Area 51 called in, gave some really interesting info to Art Bell. But then the radio station all of a sudden got cut. Everything went down and the radio station had to boot back up. And this was September 11th, 1997. So weird stuff, as always, I guess, with Coast to Coast. But this one especially, this feels, and it was supposedly proven to be a hoax, but I don't know. I don't buy the explanation they give. But so that was the topic of conversation tonight. And then we kind of veered off and talked about Sleepy Hollow and the occultists buried in that cemetery and the ruling families that are buried in the Sleepy Hollow cemetery. So that was kind of our discussion tonight. Let's see. Chat's moving quickly. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up. Niagara is so creepy, it makes you want to visit Toronto. Why is it creepy? Are you just kidding, or is it really creepy? Yeah, exactly. My chair cuts off the circulation, but I like it. I like sitting in a director's chair. Not because of being full of ego. I don't know. It just feels loungy. It feels beach-like. It feels old school, like Art Deco beach days. You're going to save money by going in the simulator when it's photorealistic terrain. That's what they want. They want us in the meta world, right? Don't give in to the bastards. Yeah, Art Bell. Rest in peace, but wild stuff on his station. He knew how to Art Bell, people were like, well, the Area 51 caller was a hoax to get attention for Coast to Coast AM. I'm like, no, Art Bell was enough to bring in everybody to Coast to Coast. He didn't need any more like notoriety. He didn't need to hoax something to go viral. No. Oh, you're doing it with the Oculus. Okay. I don't think I've ever been on an Oculus, but I don't know what brand it was, but I was at a Walking Dead convention and sorry, I was listening because I'm like, I have relatives staying with me from out of state and I hear them moving around. I'm like, oh no, I hope I'm not keeping them awake. Lost my train of thought. Hold on. Oh yeah. So I was at a Walking Dead convention and it was like some sort of virtual reality thing where it came on like an Oculus, and they put you in a wheelchair with a fake gun, and then you had I don't know. It was like you were hunting zombies. I had to take it off after 2 minutes. So I'm like, this is making me motion sick. I'm so freaking dizzy. But one of these days I'll have to try it again. I was so tempted last year when they did those Black Friday sales. Not that I had money to spend, but I'm like, should I find a way to do the Oculus anyway? I didn't end up doing it. Maybe one of these days I'll try it again and put on those motion bands so that I don't get dizzy. Yeah, he was something else. And Hex Noob had told me a story about meeting him once and getting to look at a picture of the not a picture, actually get to look at a piece of the Area 51, not Area 51, the Roswell wreckage. That was cool. It was at the end of his episode of Adapt or Get Wrecked. So the scary games in virtual reality also can be intense. Even without the computer, can just use the games on the Oculus. Okay, you're tempting me. Oh gosh, that would be fun to be like, yeah, in a scary game. But then again, like we were talking earlier, what does horror bring in? Does it invite things in? Does it invite dark entities into our lives? And I get that not everybody believes it, but for those that do, I think it comes back to kind of like the concept of the vampire. Yeah, these dark entities can attach themselves to you, but sometimes I think they have to be invited in, and you can unintentionally be inviting things in without realizing it. Kind of like they say about the vampires in vampire movies. Salem's Lot, like, don't you have to invite the vampire in before they can attack you? So I kind of look at it as, what things are you doing that you're inviting them in like a vampire and giving them permission? So yeah, so that's my dilemma. So Art Bell's most scary show was when he first interviewed a Roman Catholic priest, Father Malachi Martin, a well-known exorcist. I mean, goosebumps and heebie-jeebies throughout the show that night. Oh my gosh. That sounds intense and scary. I don't know if I can handle that. You see, those are the things that freak me out. These type of things, just like I was saying with The Conjuring, these things that can happen in real life, these things that are part of the spiritual world. those are the things that freak me out. Malachi Martin. Now I feel like I'm traveling. Haven't heard that name in a while. Or time travel. Yeah. Everything is tonight just a big old throwback to the Art Bell days. I haven't had a nightmare in a while, but I feel like I can dream up one tonight with all this talk. Oh no, I hope you do not have a nightmare. I hope you have pleasant dreams and happy dreams and a good sleep all night. Kind of like interacting with the bad token. You give it permission to enter your wallet. Exactly. That's kind of the way I look at things. And there's a lot of different ways you can approach this whole permission giving thing. Like some people think that something like yoga, you're giving permission into your life for these entities, which sounds far-fetched, but when you start looking at these gods and goddesses, so yoga, different poses are basically honoring different Hindu gods and goddesses, and then when you step back and if you come to the belief that these gods and goddesses are real, but that they're actually fallen angels posing as gods, you're like, oh, that's who's getting worshipped. Okay, these fallen angels that were posing as gods. Yeah, no, absolutely not. So that was the thing. Like I always used to think that all the different stories, like the Hindu gods and goddesses, of the Greek gods and goddesses, and so forth and so on. I used to look at them all like, oh, they're myths and stuff. But I was always kind of struck by the idea that throughout all these different civilizations, they all shared similar traits, had a similar amount of gods and goddesses. So I'm like, oh, that's odd. But I never gave it too much thought. And then when I heard that hypothesis, that theory that, oh no, these were real, these aren't myths, but they were fallen angels posing as gods so they can get worshipped. I'm like, now this makes sense. Now it makes sense why there's a connection throughout all these different religions. And I'm like, okay, so they did exist. Mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing to me. Oh, I used to have flying dreams. Those were fun. You invite that negativity in your life when you believe and live in fear. So wait, are you saying I'm living in fear? Like the perspective I take is that it's not living in fear. It's just being cautious. I don't fear these things. I just don't want to invite things in. So I like to, stay in the side of light, of positivity, of good, and to light, light versus dark, that type of thing. So stay on the side of God, so basically, sorry, I just misworded that all, but so I'm tired. Up late in that cemetery last night. To me, it's not a living in fear. It's just being cautious. It's like, you know what? I don't want to invite these things in. I'm just going to avoid it. It's not my thing. And I don't like it. So that's kind of the way I approach it. Ouija boards are a well-known channel for demonic possession. Stay away from them. Tarot cards too. Yes, I do believe that too. And again, like coming back to the thing, to me, that's not living in fear. I'm like, I just don't like it. And I don't want to bring that darkness into my life because I don't like it. Some people like dark things. I don't, and not because it scares me. I'm just like having a preference, The real you is always control if you believe that you are. Yeah, but, again, I just think that you can invite things. Yes, you're in control and you have free will. And then in that free will, you can make choices and invite things into your life that shouldn't be there, that you don't actually want. You can unwittingly invite things in. And so I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to stay cautious. There's nothing wrong with a little caution. You just stretch and breathe. No connections to anything else except the hard ground. Okay, for a moment I was like, wait, this sounds very spiritual. Okay, yeah, no, the flying dreams. I do. When I have the flying dreams, sometimes I flap like a bird, and then I don't know. Or that was the ones I remember from being a kid. Remember flapping like a bird through the house, and like nobody notices that anything is weird. Everybody's normal around as I'm flying through the house. Yeah, and he rebelled because he turned on him. Yeah, and he rebelled, and didn't they say when he fell from heaven, he fell like lightning? It was of the the appearance of lightning or something, or like a star that had fallen. I would think that story is interesting. So 1% true in the Ouija, but didn't know the same held true for tarot. Yeah, there's and I know everybody has different of opinion on this, but if you're on TikTok, there's somebody who explains it so well. I'd love to have her on sometime. If so, on TikTok, and she's on Instagram too, but I think the bulk of her videos are on TikTok, and her name is Jen Niza, and but her username is X Psychic Saved, and she actually goes into the why of it. What is problematic, what should be avoided, and the why behind it. So I love her videos, so fascinating, and I do learn a lot from them. Alien abductions or demons too. The famous Betty and Barney Hill case is a good example. Yeah, that's one of the things I always find interesting about abductions. I'm like, this completely mimics the same things that people experience when they're like, experiencing something demonic. And who was that guy? Aleister Crowley. When he used to commune with darkness, with evil, through whatever he used to do, he would see these entities and he drew them. And what's interesting about these entities that they look very similar to the Greys. So I'm like, okay, I think that says a lot. I think that says it all. Seances, remote viewing, transcendental meditation, yoga, palm readings, pornography, all channels of demonic possession. I am with you on that. And I think what's interesting is people don't realize the pornography portion of it. And I know that's probably going to stir up a huge debate, but I do want to say that I have heard stories of people who enjoyed pornography and were into it. And, it was their thing that they did. I don't know, if not necessarily like an addiction, but it was something they viewed. I've heard stories where all of a sudden these people started seeing like these shadow things lurking in their room, like these demons. Basically, they started seeing shadow people in the corners of their house, in the corners of their room. And it wasn't like, oh, they convinced themselves of this because of guilt. And like, no, these people weren't necessarily people that were spiritual or that had that were Christian and guilting themselves into imagining these things around their house. Like, no, people actually report all of a sudden, like, basically like hauntings happening in their house after that. So, but that's another debate that I'll avoid talking too much about it before we'll get into a fight about it. But also, another thing to mention, a lot of trafficking in that industry, a lot. Dementors. It was interesting. I was thinking about Dementors recently because there's something that it's very inspired. I think it's inspired by demons. Because people, when they feel Dementors, they feel this hopelessness around. So we're talking about Harry Potter. In Harry Potter, for anybody who's not familiar, Dementors are these creatures, beings, entities, whatever you want to call them in Harry Potter, and they serve a certain purpose in the wizarding world. They use them like jail security. They use them to execute people. They do all these different things with them. But when you're in the presence of a Dementor, first of all, in Harry Potter, it makes like this fog and this haze. So it like changes the environment, and they feel this deep sense of hopelessness all of a sudden. Like all the positivity and the hope and the joy have just been sucked out of them, and all they can feel is hopelessness. And they feel cold. It feels very cold when you're around a Dementor. So it's wild because those are a lot of things that people feel when they are around a demonic presence. So I'm like, I think that's what J.K. Rowling was inspired by. Hypnosis, contemplative prayer, New Age, Freemasonry, all no-nos. Yes, yeah. Shoot, the Masons, man, that would be like you could do a whole show on that stuff and not even cover it. Um, Not some sort of innocent organizations. They like to portray themselves to being some sort of volunteer organization. And here's the thing with Freemasons. A lot of the people on the lower levels are just like there to kind of like be a front for it. They don't realize what they're doing. They're just, they don't realize that they're a front for a bigger organization, but it's to make it look like, look at this nice group and they're doing community things and they're doing nice things for everybody. How could it be a bad thing? Because those people are the front. These people are just I don't know. They're joining it like the Lions Club or whatever. But the rituals though have a cultic, have a cultic influence in it. So if they were awake, they would realize, but they don't. Interestingly, Mormonism, the LDS Church, you don't get to see their ceremonies a lot because it's very secretive. But if you go onto YouTube, you can see parts of ceremonies where people have snuck in cameras into things, and they very much seem to be very influenced by Freemasonry, which says a lot. I believe it's an ancient duality, just a revised story passed down. Light, dark, raw, set God, Satan, crunchy, smooth, chocolate, vanilla, chaos, law. It's one way of looking at it. I mean, it's interesting because it's almost like every religion has a different way of explaining it, or every culture too has a different way of explaining it. Christianity, being my faith, is the lens that I view things through. So when I put it in that perspective, then things really line up for me and make sense. Yeah, but no, I'm aware. I have heard that take on it, but that's a nice thing. We could all have a different opinion and still just chat about it and have a good time. I keep looking at this thing because you know what? I'm not this massive. I'm actually a petite person, but this shirt makes me look giant. Not a flattering choice. But think I'll end it there for now, for the time being. I don't want to keep my relatives up, but I just wanted to pop in and chat with you guys and I miss you all. So, this wedding is a happy thing coming up and we're going to have a good time, but I look forward to being able to get more into this, to do better research, to really take the time to really do with high strangeness what I've been wanting to. It's just been a crazy couple of months dealing with all this. But yeah. So, hold on. Fighting stance. Put up those dukes again. The fighting stance. Oh, wait. I used to do Krav Maga. Our fighting stance was hands open. And yeah, your shoulders up near your ears with the open hands so that you could do whatever you needed to. Oh, it's been a while. But it's still like in your head. So low-level Freemasons are deliberately kept in the dark to what the real spirit of the order is. Compartmentalization. Yes, yeah. Just like Area 51. They keep everybody in the dark so that they don't know the bigger thing that they're a part of. Area 51 or whatever other military underground base is happening. Again, I think Area 51 is just a disinformation campaign so that we're looking there instead of paying attention elsewhere. Because I'm sure you guys have heard about all the deep underground military bases. But yes, yeah, it's interesting because I've heard, so this is an anecdote, just I'll throw in this anecdote. I don't know how true it is, but I think it was just given to give an example of how this works, in these type of organizations with the lower level people and the higher people. So I believe it's like 33rd degree. It's like where you get into the really elite people. So the example that was given, and I don't know whether it's this exactly, if these type of ceremonies have been used or whether this was just a general example. But what they say is like, okay, if you're having an induction of all these Freemasons, they'll say, okay, here's a cross. Spit on the cross. If you don't spit on the cross, and then, they'll see who does what. If you spit on the cross, you're out. You go leave. Everybody else who did not spit on the cross, congratulations, you were a 32nd degree Mason. Yes, you passed the test. You made it into the organization. And they let everybody think that jerk who spit on the cross, that he's being thrown out and he didn't pass the test. But meanwhile, there'll be somebody waiting at the exit and grab him and be like, no, you actually passed the test, but you're going to be a higher ranking Mason. You're going to be a 33rd degree Mason. And that's how it works. So I thought that I thought that was an interesting explanation of how these secret societies operate and function and recruit. But yeah. Oh, thank you, Brian. We'll try to get on here on time next week. No, but thank you for being here. And the thing is, I know when you're dealing with me, you're like, is she going to be late? Is she going to be on time? No, but I appreciate you being here and for your kindness. So thank you so much for your donation. And then and thank you for having me set this up. So, and I know I always get awkward about this part, but if anybody else does want to donate to the channel, you could do it here like this. Thank you, Brian. Or I actually have my wallet address in the description, and I have my Venmo address. So if anybody does, no obligation, but if anybody did want to, there it is. So thank you guys. There's like so many different topics I want to dive into and explore. And especially now that I've been listening to those 3 podcasts, like it's really kind of opening my mind to a lot, and I'm making certain connections, and it really is like going through a duck hole, going to a rabbit hole. Sorry. I love duck hole, but it makes me think of a cloaca every time. I'm sorry. Is that gross? Is that just the biologist in me? I was going to make another biologist joke, but might get myself banned off of YouTube because, controversy of gender, but I'll be good. So Masonry is just Kabbalah dressed in a fraternity. Oh, that's a way to put it. But I don't know enough about Kabbalah to know what that means. Ooh, see, this is what I mean. All the connections and the threads that are leading into other things that are just that I've been having a good time with, and I've been thinking a lot about these things lately. So like I said, after this wedding's over, I cannot wait to come back and really get into all this stuff. And I think I want to get back on TikTok and put some stuff. I actually put a clip of the Bigfoot interview from last week up there. And the thing with TikTok is people are nasty on TikTok. I mean, people just have no problem just saying whatever. And so you get a lot more hate, but I guess that's the thing. When you put yourself on the internet, you open yourself up for hate. Somebody told me on Twitter that I looked like Michael Jackson and that I wasn't pretty. I wasn't, that I ain't an oil painting. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I got a thick skin. But so I understand the point of that is not for sympathy, but I understand that, putting yourself out on the internet is, you're opening yourself up to abuse and criticism. But man, people get nasty on TikTok. So this guy was basically fantasy. Can you just have fun and explore the concept of Bigfoot? I was just presenting something. And I'm like, I said, well, it's fun to explore. And they're like, yeah, until fun to explore until you hit puberty. Then it's time to grow up. I'm like, dude, you got nothing better to do than to comment things. But I have to say that's mild compared to what people say if I talk something about hex on TikTok. But yeah, no, I want to get more into putting some tidbits on TikTok, especially some high strangeness tidbits, because I feel like some of this is cool enough to drop into a 1-minute video and do it bite size. So I want to do that too. Sounds like what the old Knights Templar did or were accused of doing before they were purged during the Crusades, and then their assets were given to the Knights Hospitallers. I had heard something recently about the Knights Templar, and I wasn't familiar with that, but I had not realized what was going on in the darkness in that organization, that was one of those dark, creepy organizations. I'm like, shoot, this stuff is everywhere. There's no escaping it. Oh, yeah. Duck Hole, the place of the movie. Is there a movie Duck Hole? Or are we thinking Howard the Duck? But yeah, Knights Templar is another thing I have to dig into. Is the Da Vinci Code, and I know the Da Vinci Code is fiction, but is the Da Vinci Code something with the Knights Templar too? I don't know. I haven't thought about that series and movie for a long time, but on Ted Lasso, somebody was reading it. The internet has no chill. Sub, these topics are cool to look into without being into them. Helps make sense of other people's nonsense and dark vibes. Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you. Thank you. Thank you for that subscription. I mean, for subbing. I don't know what we call it. Yeah. Yeah. No, and I love just like skimming the top and exploring. Like the idea that I kind of pose it this way. I'm like, we don't have to like believe everything that we talk about like when we're talking about strangeness, but it's kind of like it's approaching it and like you try it on for size. It's like trying on a theory for size and just seeing how it fits, what you think about it. So it's always fun to just be open and learn these things. And I don't mean like people like, well, you can't be too open to the fact that your brain falls out. I don't mean like that, but I'm like, why not just kind of find a topic and explore it and kind of understand what people are talking about, like both sides of it before it's completely rejected, or just kind of skim it a bit. So that's what I love about this, just to kind of be able to explore and skim the surface of these topics with you guys, and to bounce ideas off of each other. So thank you for being here and thank you for the subs. Yeah. So if anybody wants to give me a like and subscribe, I would love that. Thank you. And to anybody, same for anybody watching in the replay. If anybody is watching in the replay, you could go back and click the live chat button and see what we've been talking about here in the live chat on the side. And and there was something else I was gonna say. Oh, and if you are watching in the replay, thank you. And I think that was it. I can't think of anything else. Hey, Insidious Tomas, is that a broccoli? My relatives from Italy said the broccoli here is better. By the way, you know how a lot of things in Europe are better? They like our broccoli and our salads. They say the salads are more crunchy here. So, interesting. So donations are better. Let Ashley get to keep it all. None for YouTube. Thank you. Thank you. I am grateful for anything. I appreciate that. Especially this wedding's a little financially draining. No, but honestly, I'm like, I realize I do need to upgrade stuff. So, I will start, like StreamYard is only letting me broadcast in half HD. So I need to upgrade to a real subscription. But yeah, so donations are always appreciated. Support is always appreciated. And hey, come follow me on the socials if you're not following me. I love that too. Yeah. So you guys have a nice night. It was fun chatting with you all. And yeah, go look at these archives on Coast to Coast AM. I enjoy them. There's a lot of wild stuff happening there. And I'm thinking the Area 51 pilot story has to be on there. Maybe I'll tweet it out once I find it because it was so annoying. I clicked it and the link didn't work anymore. So, all right, guys, you all have a good night. Yeah, and sleep tight. Don't let the aliens bite. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you again for being here. Bye.